The Mishnah is on Pei Gimel Amud Beis. We're going to pick up on Pei Dal Amud Aleph. But the Mishnah yesterday said that if a person takes a shvua, that nobody's allowed to get any hana from them, so they can still get hana from leket shecha and peah. People can still get hana from leket shecha and peah, because at the end of the day, that's not going to be considered to be getting hana. It's not going to be considered to be getting benefit from the owner. Since why? Because the owner, as the pasuk tells us, is tazovotam. The owner leaves the leket shecha and peah in the corner, the ones that they drop, etc. And since they leave them hefker, and they don't have a right to choose which ani they want to give it to, so therefore it's considered to be hefker. And when the person picks it up, even if they had taken an eder, that they're not going to get any benefit from that person, or the person taking an eder that nobody can get benefit from them, it's not considered to be getting benefit from them, and therefore it is okay. So the Gemara asks, so the Gemara on Pei Dal Amud Aleph in the middle says, V'lo kitani uva meiser ani. It doesn't say anything about meiser ani. So the question becomes, is meiser ani, when you have a shvua that you're not allowed to give any benefit to anybody, so is meiser ani included that you can't get any benefit when a person is not allowed to give benefit? So is meiser ani included in giving benefit to somebody else? Well, let's just review for a second what the procedure for tithing is. The procedure for tithing is that you first give what? You give truma to the Kohen, then you give meiser rishon to the Levi. The Levi from the meiser rishon needs to give trumas meiser 1/10 to the Kohen. Then after truma and meiser rishon are given, then depending on the year, in years 1, 2, 4, and 5, you give meiser sheni, you separate meiser sheni, and you yourself, doesn't go to the Kohen, doesn't go to Levi, you yourself take it and eat it in Yerushalayim. And in year 3 and 6, you separate and you give meiser ani to the aniyim. So the question is, meiser ani, what's the status of the meiser ani? So at first glance, it's understandable why meiser ani would be different than leket shecha and peah. Because after all, leket shecha and peah, what do you do with it? You go ahead and you leave the leket shecha and peah in the corner of the field. You leave it where you dropped it, and therefore it's hefker. And therefore, if a person's not like getting hani hana from you, that's still considered not to be getting hani hana because it's hefker. But by meiser ani, which you yourself separate in year 3 and 6, and you give to an ani, so that maybe would be considered at first glance, that should be different, and that should be considered as giving a benefit. And if you can't give a benefit to somebody, so then you can't give a benefit to that ani. That's why meiser ani seemingly would be different. So let's see what the Gemara says. V'lo kitani uva meiser ani. That's why seemingly it doesn't say uva meiser ani, because meiser ani is different. And if somebody takes a neder, so then it is considered benefit from the owner, because the owner gets to choose who he wants to give the meiser ani to. The only one problem, v'atanya b'braisa, we have a braisa that says uva meiser ani. We have a braisa that says that even if somebody takes a neder that they're not going to give any benefit to the brios, so even if they took that neder, so the people can still get meiser ani. Why is the ani not considered to be getting hana from the guy that took the neder? He's not going to give any hana.
That's tovas hana, right?
Well, we're not up to the tovas hana yet. We're just talking about meiser ani.
Truma is no different. Truma is no different than that.
Right. So we're just talking about at this point meiser ani. We see a brisa that says that meiser ani is like leket shecha and peah, and we have another mishnah, which says that meiser ani is different than leket shecha and peah. So what's the difference? Why in one case can the guy give it, and in the other case the guy who took the neder not to give any hana to anybody cannot give it?
Our mission is different, right?
Our mission is different.
Yeah, different.
Amar Rabbi Yosef, Loi Kashya, Ha Rabbi Eliezer, Ha Rabbanan. This is Rabbi Eliezer, and this is Rabbanan. What does that mean? Ditnan, Rabbi Eliezer, Oy Merein Adam Sarich Likrot Shema Meiser Ani Shel Demai. A person does not have to even designate. Likrot Shem means designate, as opposed to literally put aside. So he doesn't have to even designate Meiser Ani of Demai. And the Chachamim say that he needs to at least designate it, even though he doesn't have to physically put it aside. So let's just chazer outside again. Now we discussed Truma, Meiser, Meiser Rishon, and Meiser Sheni, Meiser Ani. But now let's chazer what Demai is. Demai. Damai. What is this stuff? It's stuff purchased from an Amar. It's a person who's ignorant of halacha, doesn't know halacha so well, and therefore we cannot necessarily assume that they tithed it appropriately. The rule is as follows. Truma, we can assume that even a person who doesn't know halacha so well, he tithes truma. Everybody does truma. That's like the minimum that you do. You go to any school you go to, no matter what school you went to growing up, they taught you that you got to separate truma. So everybody separates truma. Meiser Rishon, that goes to the Levi, we assume that a person doesn't necessarily go ahead and separate it. So what do you got to do? So they say that you have to designate the Meiser Rishon, but you can keep it. Again, there's designating and there's physically separating it. So you need to designate Meiser Rishon, but you don't have to give it to the Levi. Why not? Well, you don't have to physically separate it. So why do you have to designate it? Well, you have to designate it because at the end of the day, if you don't designate it, then you have nowhere to take Trumas Meiser off of. So you need to designate Meiser Rishon. Why doesn't the Levi get it from Demai? Because of the rule of Hamotzi Mechavero Olav Araya. Everybody separates Truma. So really the Levi should get the Meiser Rishon that you designate? No, because the Levi needs to come to you if he wants the Meiser Rishon, and he needs to prove that there was no Meiser Rishon taken off of this produce. There's no way that he can prove that the Am Aretz did or didn't. I guess if we went over to the Am Aretz and we were able to believe the Am Aretz that he took it off, and we have receipts or whatever, and we saw that he didn't take it off, whatever it is, so then maybe he could prove it. But Lamaisa, since the Levi can't prove that Meiser Rishon was not already taken off, therefore I need to designate Meiser Rishon, but I don't need to take it off. Again, if I'm not giving it to anybody, why do I need to designate it? I need to designate it because I need to know that I need to then go ahead and give Trumas Meiser from this. I need to give 1/10. So if I have 100 apples, so just as an example, or I have 1,000,000 apples, if I take 10 apples and I designate them in my mind for Meiser Rishon, I then take one of those apples and I give it to the Kohen. I need to physically separate it. So Truma, I don't have to do anything. Meiser Rishon I need to designate. Trumas Meiser I need to physically separate. And until I physically separate Trumas Meiser, then the objects are considered, the Meiser Rishon is considered to be Tevel, and even though I can keep it, I can't eat it, so I need to physically separate Trumas Meiser. The thing that I did not understand, and I did not see this in the Rishonim, and again, this is not necessarily in this sugya, but I didn't understand why the Trumas Meiser would be any different. That means I understand why Trumas Meiser, you need to go ahead and separate or at least designate in order to make the Meiser Rishon be able to be eaten. I didn't understand why Trumas Meiser has to actually be given to the Kohen. I didn't understand why Trumas Meiser we can't designate as well, and why we didn't say the same thing, that the Kohen needs to come ahead and take the Trumas Meiser and say, okay, you didn't give the Trumas Meiser. That was the only thing I couldn't understand. But at the end of the day, Truma Am Aretz gives. Meiser Rishon, we assume that he didn't give, so you have to designate it, but you don't have to give it because Hamotzi Mechaver Alav Araya. Out of the Trumas Meiser, why do you have to designate Meiser Rishon? Because we know that you need to take a Trumas Meiser. So Trumas Meiser, since again, we're not sure whether he took it off or not, we need to at least designate Trumas Meiser. But again, the halacha is that by Trumas Meiser, you take and you physically give it to the Kohen. So now you've solved Truma because he gave it. You've solved Meiser Rishon because you designated it, and now you're just allowed to keep it because the Levi can't take it from you. You've solved Trumas Meiser because at the end of the day, you're giving one apple to the Kohen. What about Meiser Sheni? So Meiser Sheni, you still need to physically separate from Demai because again, it's going to you anyway. So you physically separate it. Now you take that and you bring it to Yerushalayim because again, since it's specific, you physically separate it, and now you can eat it you have to eat it in Yerushalayim. What about Meiser Ani? So that's where the debate here comes in. Does Meiser Ani need to be separated from Demai or not? So Rabbi Eliezer says that you don't need to physically separate Meiser Ani, and you don't need to even go ahead and designate Meiser Ani. That's what he means when he says, Ein sarich likro shem al Meiser Ani shel Demai. Shame is less than physically separating. Likro shame is just designating it. Not only do you not have to physically separate Meiser Ani from Demai, you don't have to even go ahead and designate Meiser Ani from Demai. And the Chachamim say, I agree with you, you don't have to go ahead and separate Meiser Ani from Demai, but you need to go ahead and at least designate Meiser Ani from Demai. Since why? The Rabbanan seem to make sense. Since its status is doubtful, so therefore, at the end of the day, I don't need to give it to the poor person because I'm Motzi Mechaver Alav Araya, but I need to at least designate it so that I don't have a problem of it being tevel. But for our purposes, what we see from here is that the Rabbanan hold that even Demai and definitely regular produce is considered to be tevel unless Meiser Ani is taken off from it. And seemingly according to Rabbi Eliezer, who says you don't have to go ahead and you don't have to even designate Meiser Ani, Rabbi Eliezer, as the Ran points out, will agree that there's a mitzvah. The Torah tells us there's a mitzvah of Meiser Ani, but what they're arguing about is whether in fact if you don't do the mitzvah, whether the produce is still tevel or not. So seemingly the Rabbi Eliezer will say that regular produce and Demai, even though there's a mitzvah to take off Meiser Ani, if you don't take off the Meiser Ani, you don't designate it or whatever, the produce is not considered to be tevel al the Meiser Ani shabo. And the Chachamim say no, that the produce is considered to be tevel until you take off the Meiser Ani, and therefore in a case of Demai, even though you don't have to give it to anybody because they have to prove Hamotzi Mechaver Alav Araya, the Ani needs to prove that it wasn't yet taken off, you need to have to at least designate the Meiser Ani likro b'shem, so that at least now the produce is not tevel. That's the Chachamim versus Rabbi Eliezer. So how does that matter? What does that matter? What is it? Very nice, but what does it have to do with our Mishnah and try to solving why in one case in the Mishnah, so you can go ahead and it doesn't include Meiser Ani because seemingly that's not considered to be a benefit, and at the same token in the other case it says Meiser Ani that the person who made the neder can still give out Meiser Ani. So what's the difference? It says in Gemara, my love, Lemandi Amar Sveiko Tovel, and again the Ryan points out it says Sveiko here, but it would be the same case by not Sveiko. We're just talking about if Demai, which is Savik by definition. The one who says that Sveiko and regular produce would be Tevel if you don't take off Meiser Ani, who's that? That's the Rabbanan. What would they hold? Kisavar Islay Tovasana. Well, you were mentioning Tovasana. They hold that there's a Tovasana, that there's a benefit to be able to choose whoever you want to give it to. V'cheivan de Islay Tovasana lo mahanya. And since there's a benefit to be able to go ahead and give the Meiser Ani to whoever you want, therefore it's not going to be able to get hana from. I'm going to explain this in 1 second. Ulamandi Amar ino Korei Shem Kisavar. And according to the Rabbi Eliezer who says that you don't have to even go ahead and be Korei Shem, you don't have to even designate the Meiser Ani from Demai or from regular produce. You should because it's a mitzvah, but you don't have to, and if you don't, it's not considered to be Tavel. Sveiko Eino Tovel, V'choshe Sveiko Eino Tovel, Leslei Tovasana, V'shari Le'liasenuye. Okay, it sounds very nice, and I could go on and pretend that we understand, but what exactly is this talking about? What does it mean that if it's Tavel, so now all of a sudden there's Tovasana, and therefore the person can't get it? What does that mean? So what that means is as follows, as the Ran explains. The Ran says that there's a pasuk. The pasuk in the Ran to the right over here in the Kisavar Sveiko Eino Tavel. If you look like 5 lines down in the Ran points to pasuk. Dichsiv v'lo yichalilu es kachei b'nei Yisrael. You can't be mechalel the kachim of b'nei Yisrael. Eis asher yarimu, that which they lift. And the Ran learns, based on the Gemara over there, the Ran learns that the pasuk is connected v'lo yichalilu to eit asher yarimu, and it's an interesting drush in the pasuk. But the fact is that the owner can only choose who to give the produce to of Meiser Ani if the produce would become Tevel if you don't separate the Meiser Ani. V'lo yichalilu, it shouldn't become Tevel, then eit asher yarimu. You can only go ahead and lift up your hand and take the Meiser Ani and give it to whoever you want if the produce would become Tevel if you didn't do it. That's the drush of the pasuk. V'lo yichalilu eit asher yarimu. Therefore, let's think it out for a second. According to the Rabbanan who say that if you don't give Meiser Ani, so then the produce will become Tevel, they're the ones that eit asher yarimu is going to apply to, and therefore, according to them, the guy, when he takes off the Meiser Ani, can give it to whoever he wants. But according to Rabbi Eliezer, who holds that if you don't take off Meiser Ani, even though you should, if you don't take off Meiser Ani off of produce, so then in fact the produce does not remain Tevel, so then eit asher yarimu would not apply to him, and therefore Rabbi Eliezer would say that if you go ahead, then you leave the Meiser Ani, you can't give it to whoever you want, you leave it as hefker, and anybody can take it. So now let's plug it into our Mishnah. So our Mishnah, 1 second, our Mishnah which says leket, shechra, and peah, and not Meiser Ani, who would that be going like? That would be going like the Rabbanan, who say that if you don't separate Meiser Ani, then it becomes Tevel. Since if you don't separate Meiser Ani, it becomes Tevel. When you take Meiser Ani, now you have the ability, the tovas hana'ah, the benefit, and now you can give it to whoever you want, and now the Kohen will owe you big time, or his relative will owe you, and now when he duchins, he'll have you in mind more than anybody else. So in that case, since you have the ability to give to whoever you want, because eit asher yarimu goes on a case of that it becomes tevel. So according to Rabbanan, this guy who takes a neder not to benefit someone, he can't benefit this Kohen, so then the Kohen can't go ahead. So then in that case, he can't go ahead and leket shechan peh. He could go and leket shechan peh, but he can't go ahead in Meiser Ani, because at the end of the day, I'm giving the Meiser Ani to you, and you can't get benefit from me. But according to Rabbi Eliezer, he would be the brisa that says with Meiser Ani, that even with the neder, the guy can go ahead and get benefit from Meiser Ani, because it's not really benefit from Meiser Ani, because according to Rabbi Eliezer, when it deals with Meiser Ani, it's hefker, and if it's hefker, then it's exactly like leket shechan peh, and therefore the brisa which says leket shechan peh over Meiser Ani, that would be going according to Rabbi Eliezer. We should stop here and stop on a high, but okay, yeah. There was a question or no? We're clear?
No, so we're only down because of the suffix here. The machlokes for Rabbi and Chaim only because we have a suffix.
Again, that's not what so that's why I was very careful when the Ran said Lamandamar Sveiko Tovel. Right. He was saying, the Ran points out, he was saying Sveiko because that's the case we're dealing with. But we can make the same determination that even if it wasn't a case of Sveiko, we would say the same thing.
You're saying according to Rabbi, even if it's a vada, you don't have to take off Meiser Ani.
You have to take off, but if you don't take off, it's not going.
Ain't on them gross shame on Meiser Ani.
Again. You don't have to take. You should because it's a mitzvah, but if you don't, then it's not going to be tevel according to Rabbi Eliezer.
But even
by regular case.
Even though this machlokes in the Mishnah, we're not talking about demai.
Yes, that's
but you're saying by a vadai.
That's how I understood. Yeah, that's how I understood it.
So you're saying by a vadai, he would say
if you should take it off, but if you don't, it's not tevel.
And you can eat it.
Yeah, that's where I understood it. Amalei Abaye, and the Chachamim would say no, it's not. It would be tevel anyway. Therefore, once it would be tevel anyway, now I have the right to give it to whoever I want, based on the drush and the pasuk Eight Asher Yarimu. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye says that would be glot, but sorry. The Kulei Alma Sveiko Tovel. That even Rabbi Eliezer holds that if you go ahead and you don't take off Maiserani, he holds it's going to be tevel. And therefore, at the end of the day, if he's going to be tevel, that means he has the right to give it to whoever he wants. If he has the right to give it to whoever he wants, that means it's not considered to be hefker. If it's not considered to be hefker, we have a problem, because then why does the Brisa say that uve maiserani, that the guy who took the neder can go ahead? Isn't it not considered to be benefit? So the Gemara says, then what's the machlokas? Again, this is an aside, because right now we've basically rejected the fact that Rabbi Eliezer is the Brisa. If Rabbi Eliezer is not the Brisa, then we're stuck with our Mishnah versus the Brisa. But while we're on the topic, so now let's figure out what the machlokas in this Brisa of Demai is. If Rabbi Eliezer in fact holds Tovel, if he holds Tovel, that means the Maisa he should hold that over here you have to go ahead and you have to at least be Korei Shem, even though I understand you don't have to physically separate it because the Ani can't take it from you because of Motzi Mechaver Avaraya, but at the very least you should have to be Korei Shem. The fact that he says you don't have to be Korei Shem seems to imply that you can eat it even though it's not going to be you could eat it because it's not going to be Tevel. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbanan B'Hakam Ifligi. Rabbi Eliezer Savar Lo Nechshedu Amei Haaretz Amaiser Ani. Rabbi Eliezer says the reason you don't have to separate the reason really if you don't separate it from regular produce it's going to be Tevel. Why don't you have to separate Maiser Ani from Demai? Because we assume that just like he learns in school that he needs to separate Truma, he learns that he needs to separate Maiser Ani. Not exactly. Why are we not choshe that Maiser Ani? Why are we not choshe that he didn't separate Maiser Ani? Kevan de ilu mafgir nichse v'havei ani v'shaka lehu las leipseda. Because he knows that if he would ever come to the point where he wants to eat the Maiser Ani, he could just be mafgir all of his stuff and then eat the Maiser Ani. So therefore, it's not upseda. So we know that the ignorant people, right? We know this. Ignorant people, they learn halacha, but they know the halachas that are all the loopholes. He asked the guys who are ignorant, so they know all the halachas that are the loopholes. So the loopholes he knows. He doesn't know any of the regular halacha, but the loopholes he learned. So he learned the loophole in school that he knows. Of course he's going to separate Maiser Ani. Why would he not? Because at the end of the day, he knows the produce is here. And again, especially if he's designating in his mind, so nobody even knows. So now he separates the Maiser Ani, but seemingly he needs to tell somebody. So let's say he tells somebody, he separates the Maiser Ani, but he knows if anybody starts coming to his field, he sees Aniyim start coming to his field, what's he going to do? I'm mafgir all my stuff. Mafgir all my stuff, I can take all the stuff. So he's willing to do the halachas that are convenient for him. It's a loophole. So therefore we assume that he took off the Maiser Ani, because at the end of the day, if he wants it back, he can just take it whenever he wants by being mafgir stuff. And therefore, that's why Rabbi Eliezer says that in the case of Demai, Ein Adam Sarech Lekrot Shem. But in the case of regular produce, Ein Achanami, a guy would have to take off Maiser Ani. And if he doesn't take off Maiser Ani, so then in fact the produce would be Tevel. It's just the mitzias here that we assume that just like he took off Truma, but for a different reason he took off Maiser Ani. And therefore, if you buy Demai, you don't have to take off Maiser Ani. But I agree with you. Rabbi Eliezer says that Ein Achanami, by regular case, if you don't take it off, it's Tevel. And therefore, I agree with you that our Mishnah says Yachol Lehanas Beleket Shecho Peya and not Maiser Ani, but now we're stuck with the Brisa. We don't know who the Brisa is like that says Uve Maiser Ani. What's the machlokas? So what do the Rabbanan hold? Why do the Rabbanan say that we have to take off? Why don't we assume it's a good argument? Why don't we assume that the guy actually took off Maiser Ani? The Rabbanan say no. Nichse lo mafgirinish, because he's a smart Amma Aretz. Nichse lo mafgirinish. He's not going to be mafgir his nechasim. Demirtas dilma zachibu inishachrini, because he understands that when he's mafgir his stuff to get the payros, so what's going to happen? Now some guy can come and take his house. So what's he going to do? So he's not going to be mafkirit. Hilkach nechshadu. Therefore, we have to assume that he didn't separate the Maiser Ani, because again, he only separated the Maiser Ani because he knows he could have it anyway. How could he have it anyway by being mafkir stuff? That's what Rabbi Eliezer says. Rabbanan says no, that's not true. He won't separate it because he doesn't know he could have it anyway. Because the only way to have it anyway is to be mafkir your stuff, and he's smart enough to know that when he's mafkir your stuff, then you can go ahead and anybody could take his stuff. He could take his house. That's the machlokes Rabbanan and Rabbi Eliezer. But again, for our purposes, we're still stuck because we still have a brisa that seemingly says that you can go ahead and give the Maiser Ani, but even though seemingly, according to everyone, you give the Maiser Ani out, so that should be considered a benefit. So why, if I take a neder not to benefit people, can I go ahead and give my Maiser? How can that guy take benefit from me? Says the Gemara, Rava Omer, Kan b'Maiser Ani hamischalek b'toch habayis Dechsiva be nisina v'nasata la levi la ger la yasom v'la mana mishum hachi asur le le'ishanuye kan b'maiser ani hamischalek betocha granos kevan dechdiv be v'hinachta b'sharecha shari le le'ishanuye. Gemara gives a very simple answer. And you always pull out your hair and said, okay, why didn't you save me all the aggravation and just give the answer in the beginning? So Rabbi says what? Rabbi says here's the difference. The case where it says that you cannot go ahead and take the maiser ani, that's talking about a case when the guy actually goes ahead and gives out the maiser ani with his own hands. But when the guy leaves the maiser ani for it to be hefker, so then anybody can take the maiser ani because it's not considered to be getting a benefit. If that's such a simple thing, what's the difference? So why is it that sometimes he gives it out and sometimes he doesn't? So look at the Ran, and this is what he's explaining in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Rava Amar, the second wide line in the Ran on Pei Daled Amabez. Rava asa lepruke masnisan ubraisa de lokashin mishum de masnisan mayre b'maiser ani hamischalik b'toch habayis. Our Mishnah which says that a guy cannot come ahead and get the maiser ani from the Baal Habayis who swore not to give any hana. That's when he's giving it out himself. The Chaim Baal Habayis mechalko v'nodno tova sana shalom mishum hachi lo ketani b'masnisan maiser ani da mitzvah Rabbi. So he can't give it out. The guy can't get it because he can't get any hana from this guy. Ubraisa mayre, when the Braisa which says you can actually take maiser ani as opposed to lek shechampeya. Why is that not considered to be getting hana from the owner? Ubraisa mayre b'maiser ani hamischalik b'toch hagranos. It's when he leaves it in the granos. Shemanicho begorim v'cholarot salito yito. And this is based on the sifri. V'hasam b'sifri rami. Ksiv, it says in one pasuk you should give it to the Levi la'asam v'lamana. Uchsiv, and then it says that for the maiser ani v'heinafta b'sharecha you should leave it in your gate. So which one is it? Do you leave it or do you give it? Says the sifri, kan b'mosachama, kan b'mosageshamim. It's a metzias case. Hachi perusho b'mosachama meinicho begoren. When it's nice outside, you don't bring it into your house. You leave it in the goren. Whoever wants to take it can take it. So most of the year, let's say, especially in Eretz Yisrael, b'mosachama, most of the year it's talking about the fact that the guy leket shechapeya and maiser ani. Most of the year is like the Braisa, because at the end of the day, if you're leaving it in the field, it's hefker, so now anybody can take it. It's not considered to be getting benefit from you. What's our Mishnah talking about when dafka you can get hana from leket shechapeya because it's mafkir, it's hefker, but you can't go ahead and get maiser ani? That's talking about b'yemos hageshamim. Ukshemagin yemos hageshamim mechalko b'toch habeso. That's when the guy takes the stuff from the field when it starts raining. He doesn't want the stuff to get ruined. The stuff for the ani, even though it's not his, he's a nice guy. He doesn't want it to get ruined. He takes all the stuff inside the house. Now he starts giving it out in the house. When he starts giving it out in the house, so now if you come and get from him in the house, now it's considered to be getting benefit from him. And that's the difference. So our Mishnah which says, leket shechan peya, but not maiser ani, because again, the guy took a neder not to get any hana, not to give any hana, that's considered to be when he's actually giving it out in his house when it's raining outside, b'yemos hageshamim. In that case, nobody can go ahead and take it. They have to go ahead only if he's konim shani nel brios enu yachal afer. So then they can go ahead and they can take the leksha and pay. They can't take the maiser ani. But when the maiser ani is out in the field and it's hefker, so then even if this guy's swore not to give any benefit to anybody, it's not considered to be getting benefit from him if you go ahead and take the maiser ani that is in the field. Good.
So is Rabbi saying that the mosachama, he's not allowed to give it to anyone he wants? Or is it there's always told us no? He could even take a mosacham and give it to whoever he wants. He could take it all to his house.
No,
not getting it.
It sounds like it's a metzias that in the mosachama, when it's do. Out in the field.
Is it halacha or what people do?
No, it sounds like that's what people do, and that's why it's okay.
So you don't have to do it that way.
No, it's saying that's what people do, and that's why it's okay. It's okay.
He still told us no in it. He could still take a mosacham of all the grains in his house and say you're not getting, you're getting, right? He could do it, but luckily he could do it. I know, I understand.
But it's in the Metzias is that when it's out in the field, it's considered to be hefker. Once he takes it into the house, it's not hefker anymore.
But there is
no tovas and if it's hefker.
But he could take it away.
He could take it, but there's no tovas. But right now it's
field and say you're not getting, you're getting.
But right now it's hefker. Once it's in the field, it's hefker. If he takes it into his house, so then it's a different ballgame. When it's in his house, so enachanami he can't give it to you.
It's in the field.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Once
it's in the field, it's hefker. That's what it says.
So he can't say you're getting, you're not getting.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
He hasn't eaten the mefarshi the opposite.
It's the mefarshi opposite. Okay, this is confusing enough. We're not going to go into the mefarshi, but either way, you can have the same kasha that he's asking. It's the mefarshi the opposite, but that's for the next 7.5 year cycle. Okay, that's why we have istim mefarshi. It's not because you like the second one better. The first one's for the first cycle, the second one's for the second cycle. And then once you know everything, you move on to taisvos and you do the other stuff. Okay, Meretz Hashem, we shall be Zechus to learn many cycles of Daf Yomi. Kohanim olevim nanin li yitlu. So the Mishnah now says a totally different case. We have to switch gears. Told you it wasn't an easy daf. So kohanim levim nanim li yitlu al korcho. If he says that no kohanim and levim can get any of my stuff, so then they can take it against him because again he has truma ma'is. We need to give the truma to ma'asos. So now he says none of the kohanim and levim can get any enough from any of my stuff. So now they can go and they can take it against his will. Kohanim elu levim elu. If he says these kohanim and these levim can't get any enough from my stuff, so now they in fact can't get it, and other people need to take the Trumas and Maisos. Fine. Let's see what the Gemara says. Alma tovas hana eina mamon. So we learn from the Reisha of the Mishnah that the Kohanim and Leviim, if you make everybody aser to it, so now they can go ahead and take it from you. So that seemingly says that when they take it from you, so they're not considered to be getting hana from you. Alma tovas hana eina mamon. That when they go ahead and take it from you, usually you could give the Trumas and Maisos to any Kohen and Levi. Here, when you take a neder, so then any Kohen and Levi, when you take a neder not to give any benefit, so really you shouldn't be able to give it to anybody, but the Mishnah says any Kohen and Levi could take it from you. It must be that the benefit over here, the tovas hana here, is not a material benefit, because if it was a material benefit, then at the end of the day, when you swore not to give benefit to a Kohen or Levi, then even though you swore not to give benefit to any Kohen or Levi, why should the Kohanim and Leviim be able to take it from you? It's considered to be a material benefit. So it's clear that tovas hana is eino mamon over here. So the Gemara says, eima seifa. The problem is that in the Sefer it says, Kohanim elu uleviim elu nenim li yitlu acherim. That when you say that these specific Kohanim can't get from me, so now other people can take it. If you hold that tovas hana is eina mamon, seemingly the way the Gemara is learning here, and it seems to be a little different than we were learning until now, it seems to be that the ability to give it to whoever you want, or the ability basically that you give it, seemingly even against your will, that's not considered to be a tovas hana. That's not considered to be a material benefit. So in the Reisha, it's not a material benefit, therefore anybody can take it from you. Because I could argue that even though I don't have a choice to give it to whoever I want, it's still a material benefit when Lamaisa you take my stuff. So we're saying when you end up taking my stuff, it's not considered to be a material benefit for me. So Ema Seifa, Kohanim Leviim Netulim Yitlu Acherim, Aval Lahani Lo Alma Tovas Hana Mamon. But even if I would exclude only some Kohanim and Leviim, so then according to this, if Tovas Hana is Eino Mamon, if giving them my stuff is not really considered to be a material benefit, so even when I exclude only some of them, why should I not be able to give it to those some? At the end of the day, if you hold that tovas hana is eino mamon, so it seems to be a contradiction. In the Reisha, it seems to be that giving them my stuff is no material benefit, and in the Sefer, it seems to be that giving them my stuff is a material benefit, and therefore I can't give the ones that I specifically said I won't give to, and I need to give it to other people. So says the Gemara, Amar of Hoshea, lo kasha. Hoshea says it's not a kasha. Ha Rabbi v'ha Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Huda. This is Rabbi, and as the Ran explains, Rabbi is the Seifa, tovas hana is mamon, that it is a material benefit, and therefore you go ahead and you have to give it to the ones that you didn't exclude. And Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda is the Reisha that tovas hana is eino mamon. So says the Gemara, Ditanya, where do we see whether it's a material benefit or not? So we have a separate case. Just to confuse it, we have a separate case. Hagoinev tivlo shel chavero va'achlo mishalem lo demei tivlo. What happens if you go ahead and you steal all of my produce? So how much do you need to pay me? So if you steal all of my produce, va'achlo mishalem lo demei tivlo, you need to pay me demei tivlo. You need to pay me for all of the grain, all of the produce that was there. And says the Ran, according to Rabbi, udemei, the bottom line, udemei chumos u'maiso lefi tovas hana sheyesh lo bahen. I don't need to pay you for the Trumas and Maisos. If I steal your produce, so what's in this produce? Well, there's regular stuff and there's Trumas and Maisos. So the Trumas and Maisos you're not going to end up keeping anyway. You're going to have to give it to the Kohen and Levi. So I need to pay you for the chulin that you would have had, and I need to pay you for the Tovas Hana, for the ability that you would have had to give it to any Kohen and Levi that you wanted. But the actual Trumas and Maisos I don't pay you for, because at the end of the day, you would have given that up anyway. It wouldn't have been yours. It would have been the Kohen or Levi's. The Svirle de Tovas and Amaman. So we see, according to Rabbi, that the ability to go ahead and give it to whoever you want, that's a monetary benefit, and therefore I need to pay you for that monetary benefit that you no longer have. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda Omer, Eino Mashalem Ela Demei Chulin Shabo. I only have to pay you for the Demei Chulin. Now he agrees I don't pay you for the Trumas and Maasros again because you're giving it up anyway, but I don't have to go ahead and even pay you for the ability that you would have had to go ahead and give the Trumas and Maasros to whoever you want, because seemingly Rabbi Yossi holds that Tovas Hana is Eino Mamon. It has no monetary benefit, the fact that you can give it to whoever you want. My lav b'hakamifli is, it's not what they're arguing about. The Rabbi savar Tovas Hana Mamon, and therefore I need to pay you back for the ability that you did not have, or the disability that you had to be able to give it to whoever you wanted. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda savar Tovas Hana Eino Mamon. And therefore going back to our Kohanim and Leviim, so the first case would be Tovas Hana Eino Mamon. That would be Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and that's why at the end of the day anybody can take it, because even though you took a swear, anybody can get it. It's not really considered to be benefit. And according to the Svar and according to the Seifa, the ability to give to whoever you want is Tovas Hana, and therefore at the end of the day you can't give to these guys that you excluded, and you have to give to the other people. Lo, de Kuleyama Tovas Hana Eina Mamon. No, everybody agrees that Tova Sana is Eino Mammon. They all hold like Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda. It's Eino Mammon, there's no monetary benefit there, for when you exclude everyone, anyone can go ahead and take. Then why in the second case where you exclude certain people, if it's not really a benefit to give to whoever you want and you exclude certain people, so why can't you give the people that you excluded even? So the Gemara says, Elahacha b'matano shelo hormu kamifligi. Again, let's just stay in this machlokes of the Gonev Tivlo Shel Chavero. They're arguing b'matano shelo hormu. What does that mean? What does that mean? Says Naran, third line. The Rabbi Savar, Rabbi again who holds that you need to go ahead and you pay everything, and you even have to pay the Tova Sana that you didn't have to pay. You don't pay for the Chumas and Maisos because it's not yours anyway, but you have to pay for the Chulin and for the ability that I lost to be able to give the Chumas and Maisos to whoever I want to give it to. Kevan de lo hormu Chumas and Maisos, even though I didn't go ahead and be marim the Chumas and Maisos, Haveluhu kechulin shabo, delav kimisha hormu damyan. It's considered to be like chulin because I didn't take it off yet. For Rabbi Yossi, savar kimisha hormu damyan ve'ein lo bahem klum, umishum hachi eino mishale melademe chulin shabo. So this seems to be going a little bit further. According to the way that I'm reading the Ran, it seems like he's saying you have this big pile here. And maybe what he's saying is that Rabbi is saying that you actually don't just pay back the chulin and the Tova Sana. What you have to pay back is the entire pile. Why? Because since it was not yet taken off, the Chumas and Maisos, yes, you're going to take it off eventually. Since it wasn't yet taken off, it's like chulin. Dilav kemish shehor mudamin. If it wasn't taken off, it's not like it was taken off, and therefore you have to pay back the entire amount. So if the produce is worth $1,000, originally we thought you pay back $800. The $200 you don't pay back. You just have to add a little bit of the Tova Sana that I lost by being able to give wherever I want. But the $200, which was going to go to Chumas and Maisos anyway, I don't have to pay back. It sounds like, according to the way we're learning now, that Rabbi would actually hold that if you stole $1,000, you pay me back the full $1,000. 200 of it I was going to give to the Kohen and Levi. It doesn't matter. I didn't give it to the Kohen and Levi yet. And Rabbi Yossi Savar, that even though I didn't give it yet, since I'm eventually going to have to give $200, even though it's interesting, because at the end of the day you can give whatever you want for Chumas and Maisos, so there's no specific amount. But since I didn't yet give, even though I didn't give it yet, it's considered as if I gave it, and therefore you only need to pay me the 800, you don't need to pay me the extra 200. How does that work?
So it's just the opposite of what we said before.
That what?
The amounts. Before we said...
No, well again, this is just a machlokes in this brisa. But you don't have to set, the point is that you don't have to set up this brisa, as being a machlokes of Tova Sana. For our purposes, it's all we care about. You want to set it up as being a machlokes of Tova Sana. But if you could say that everybody holds either Tova Sana in a Mammon or Tova Sana is Mammon, at the end of the day, you don't have to set it up as being a machlokes in Tova Sana. If you break it up as not being machlokes in Tova Sana, you have no proof for our purposes. That's basically what we need. So says the Gemara, V'i Tova Sana in a Mammon, Mali Hormu, Mali Ho-Hormu. So the Gemara says that if Tova Sana is not Mammon, so then what's the difference if he actually took it not? That means if the owner... One second. Right. It sounds like we're saying Im Tova Sana in a Mammon. So if the owner has nothing, it sounds like we're asking Rabbi. It sounds like the Gemara is asking on Rabbi. I don't understand. He's saying according to you, so Mali Hormu, Mali Lo Hormu. At the end of the day, if the guy is giving it up at the end of the day, if he's giving it up anyway, so why should I have to pay you for money that you're going to end up giving up anyway to the Kohanim and Leviim? And therefore, it seems like the Gemara doesn't like this suggestion. The Gemara doesn't like this suggestion of the fact that Rabbi would say that you need to pay me the entire amount, because at the end of the day, Mali Hormu, Mali Lo Hormu. What's the difference? Lamaisa, if I'm going to give it up, if you're eventually going to give it up anyway to the Kohen and Levi, so then why should I be responsible now to pay you? I should pay you the 800. I agree, I should pay you the 800. But again, you have a smart Ganav over here. He's a smart Ganav that has a svara that says, why should I pay you the full amount if Lamaisa you're going to have to give it some to the guy anyway, to the Kohanim and Leviim? So what's the difference here? Again, what's the machlokas here? Elahainu taima de Rabbi. Kansuhu rabbanon liganov kihechi de lo lignov. Very, very interesting. So really what we're saying is that what? Rabbi holds Eina Chanami. You're going to eventually give up the money. So if you're going to give up the Chumas and Maisos, you shouldn't have to pay you back for the Chumas and Maisos, because at the end of the day, what's the pshat? If you're going to give it up anyway, I shouldn't have to pay you for the Chumas and Maisos. So I understand Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda says, you steal my $1,000 worth of produce, you need to pay me back. You eat it all, you need to pay me back $800, because $200 would have gone to the Kohen and Levi either. Again, what exactly is the pshat? The guy who stole it and ate it, what's his chiyuv with eating Chumas and Maisos? That's a separate discussion. But you need to pay me $800 because I would have had to give $200 200 to the Kohen and Levi anyway. According to Rabbi, Mali Hormu, Mali Lo Hormu. Lamaisa, you should have to pay me only $800 because the 200 would have given up anyway. Says the Gemara, you're right. Really, Mitzad Adin, you should, the Ganav, only have to pay me $800. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to give you a knas. You're a Ganav and you're a smart Ganav, but we're going to give you a knas for stealing in the first place. And since you're right, you shouldn't have to pay the full $1,000. We're giving you a $200 fine for going ahead and stealing, and therefore you pay me $800 in produce. $200 I would have given to the Kohen and Levi anyway, but now you got to give me a $200 fine, and at the end of the day it comes out to the same thing, and you pay me the full $1,000. That's what the Gemara says. Look at the Ran for a second before we see Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. Ela hainu time de Rabbi. Hashalomi bayalani islahu l'tavayu tovasana mamon o ena mamon. Now it doesn't really matter whether there's tovasana, and again, for our purposes, we basically have no answer. Why? Vi islahu tovasana ena mamon. Because if you say that there's no material benefit to the tovasana, there is no material benefit. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda necha. I understand according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, why you go ahead and eno mishalim ela demechulin shabo. You don't pay for Tovas Hana. Rabbi Hainu time de Kansura Bana Lagal Neshama Tovas Hana Shel Chumas Maestros Lebal Habayis. So he's explaining a little bit differently than I'm saying. He's saying not that you're paying him the $200 for the produce, you're paying him the Tovas Hana that he doesn't have to now give the Chumas and Maestros. That's the knas that he's giving. So Eina Chanami. Everybody agrees that when you steal my $1,000, so Eina Chanami, 200 would have gone to the Kohen and Levi anyway. So what's the machlokas here? So according to, again, back in the thing, Agonev Tivlo Shachaver Va'achlo Mishalem Dilamo Demei Tivlo. I pay him for the $800, and as the Ran explains, I pay him the Tovas Hana. Why, according to the Rabbi, do I need to pay Tovas Hana? Because at the end of the day, I'm giving you a knas that you need to pay the Tovas Hana. And Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda will say, no, Eina Mashalem Ademechulin Shabo, there is no knas involved, and therefore you just pay the $800. V'sviraluhu Tovas Hana mamon l'Rabbi necha. If you hold that everybody holds that you do go ahead and there is monetary benefit. So now I understand, according to Rabbi, if there's monetary benefit, I understand why you pay the Chulin Shabo, the 800, and I understand why you pay for the monetary benefit, even without a knas, because Rabbi said there is monetary benefit. But according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda, why do I not have to go ahead and pay the two? Why don't I have to pay the Tovas Hana if I agree that Tovas Hana is, quote unquote, is considered to be mamon? Rabbi Yossi Huda hainu taimei de'eno mishalem. The reason you don't go ahead and pay it, even though you should have to pay the Tovas Hana by being a ganav, no, over here el demechulin shabo mishum de kansura abanan me. They're giving me a knas. Shelo yishalem lo Tovas Hana shebetchumos amaisros. Why? Because I should have taken off my stuff earlier. I shouldn't have waited and have it lying around before separating it. The fact that you stole it from me, it's my fault that I didn't take off the Chumas and Maestros before you stole it from me. And therefore it comes out, no matter how you learn, that we can understand both of them. If you learn Tovas Hana is not mamon, there is no monetary benefit. So then I understand Rabbi Yossi, who says you only pay back the produce, you don't pay back the Tovas Hana. So then why, according to Rabbi, do you need to pay for the Tovas Hana? You need to pay back for the benefit that I lost, because Lamaisa we're giving you a knas for stealing my stuff. And if you say the other way, if you say that Tovas Hana is mamon, that it is monetary benefit, so then I understand Rabbi, who says that you need to go ahead and pay me back the 800 and the Tovas Hana. According to Rabbi Yochanan, if Tovas Hana is benefit, why don't you have to go ahead and pay me back the Tovas Hana for the stuff? Said Rabbi Yochanan, we're giving me a knas, even though I deserve the Tovas Hana from you, we're giving me the knas for leaving my stuff tevel and for not separating Chumas and Maestros earlier before you stole it. So you did something wrong by stealing it, but I did something wrong by letting it be stolen before I took off the Chumas and Maestros. Therefore, you pay me back the 800, you don't pay me back the 200 according to everybody because it's going to the Kohen anyway, and that's your problem now. But now you don't have to pay me back the Tovas Hana, even though you should have to pay me back the Tovas Hana, because Tovas Hana in fact is mamon according to this side of the Gemara. But Lamaisa, you don't have to pay it back to me because we're going to penalize me for not going ahead and separating the Chumos and Maestros earlier. Fine. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, we still don't have an answer after all is said and done. We don't know whether Tovas Hana is mamon or is not mamon after we have this brisa, and therefore we're still stuck with our Mishnah versus the brisa. When can you take Meiser Ani, and when can you not in fact take Meiser Ani? So says the Gemara, I'm sorry, not Meiser Ani. I'm getting confused with the last thing. When exactly, why is it that Kardim and Levium in the beginning is considered to be Nan and Li, so then anybody can take it, because Tovas Hana is Eino Mamon? And why is it in the Seifa where these specific people can't get Hana, so then other people can get it, because seemingly Tovas Hana would be Mamon? So we don't have an answer from this. So where do we have an answer? So again, Baruch Hashem, we have the easy answer at the end. It's all in the clear now. Rav Amar, Shani Truma, Dahainu taima de yilu al korcho mishum de truma lo chazya elo lekohanim. V'kevan disa'asi lemisra alayhu shavya afara be'alma. So Rabbi says that truma is different because the reason that you can be yidlu al korcho is because it's not fit for anybody but kohanim. And since you're making all kohanim asur to this truma, so therefore it's like afra bi'alma. Let's see the Ran inside and we'll end with this. Rava amar shani truma klomar kula masnisan isla de tovasana mamon enachanami. We hold that tovasana, the ability to give to whoever you want, that's considered to be a monetary benefit. If that's true, then we said we understand the sefer in the Mishnah. Therefore, sefer necha de kohanim elu yidlu acher. If it's an actual benefit, we understand the sefer which says that you're going to give not to these kohanim. Then we understand why you have to give it to other kohanim, because if you would give it to these kohanim, it's considered to be a benefit, and you took a swear or neder not to give benefit to these kohanim. Though in the Reisha then, if you took a swear and we consider to giving benefit, we consider the benefit as being a real benefit. So then why, when you take a swear to not give any kohanim any hana, so why are you in fact allowed to give anybody truma? Why is it that anybody can come take it? That should be getting a benefit from you. Says the Ran beautifully based on the Gemara, V'reisha hainu taima deyilu bal korcho is mishum de truma lo chazi el kohanim. Because since truma is only fit for kohanim, in the other case, you can give it to other kohanim, but here you can only give it to kohanim, and you basically ask it all kohanim. When you go ahead and you make it usher to kohanim, something that can only be given to kohanim, shavya afra be'alma. It's considered to be afra be'alma. It's as if you said, not that this is usher to you, not that this truma now it's usher to all kohanim. It's as if you said this truma is afar. Because the same thing is saying that this is truma and no kohen can take it. Because if only kohanim can take it, so saying this is truma and no kohanim can take it is the equivalent of saying this is truma or this is afar. The afgarei la tovas hana sheyesh lo ba. So really, eina chanami. Tovas hana is mamon. It is a real benefit, and therefore in the seifa, when I go ahead and I exclude certain kohanim, so they can't go ahead and take anything because it's a real benefit, and I just took a neder that they can't get benefit, that those specific people can't get benefit. Why when I go ahead in the reisha and I say all kohanim can't get benefit, so now kohanim can get benefit by taking it, because even though tovas hana is mamon, in this case when I say truma, but it's usher to all kohanim, since only kohanim are allowed to eat it, by saying it's usher to all kohanim, it's as if I'm saying that I'm giving up my tovas hana, and even though tovas hana is mamon, I'm giving it up here, and I'm saying that this produce is actually hefker. Once it's hefker, so any kohen can come and take it as they please. But in general, we hold like the seifa that tovas hana is mamon, and it's a real benefit, and therefore you can only give it to kohanim that you haven't excluded. But again, the reisha would be an exception, because in the reisha we're not dealing with tovas hana, we're dealing with something that was made hefker, and once it's made hefker, everybody agrees that anybody can take it.